Okay, so now we've got those two concepts. We've got demand and we've got supply. So we have the total willingness of people to pay within a market, which decreases as price increases. And we have supply, which in general, according to our law of supply, increases as price increases. The quantity increases as the price increases. Now, there are things that we talked about called the determinants of demand that move the demand curve around, right? So we looked at a what is a market equilibrium, right? And so we have our price and quantity at equilibrium. Now I suggest you approach these problems this way at all times. You could write on a piece of scrap paper on the side, whatever you want to do in order to be able to follow these word problems. Because what you're going to be faced with is something like this. Okay, so now a media campaign comes out. Let's say this is the market for milk, right? For plain old milk, cow's milk. And let's say that there's a large study, a medical study done saying that drinking milk contributes to overall good health. I don't know, makes you smarter or whatever it is. Some sort of positive news article. Now we remember that one of the determinants of demand was consumer preferences. So let's say that this changes our consumer preferences. So what's going to happen to our demand curve? Well, at all prices, the demand is going to move up. So this is going to cause our demand curve to move in this direction. Let's call that D1. See what happens? The demand moved over. Now, now the question is, what does that do to our equilibrium within the market? Well, what's going to happen is because more is demanded, the price is going to be driven up. So we're going to arrive, all other things remaining equal. Let's say the supply and businesses' willingness to supply at each price has remained unchanged. What will happen there is that this demand curve is pushed, and then we have a new equilibrium, right? QE1, PE1, right? So only the demand has shifted, and what's happened is that we've experienced a change in the equilibrium. So that's what we really need to be looking for in these word problems. Very often we're going to be presented with a couple of things that change. Like it could be just the demand changes, and you need to figure out for yourself, okay, any word problem. Big marketing campaign leading to consumers believing that milk would contribute to their overall health. What I need to do is I need to think to myself, okay, that is a demand side thing, and what is it going to do to the demand? It's going to increase the demand, so we're going to move the curve outward from the axes, meaning that at all prices, the quantity demanded is going to be larger, so it moves the curve. Now, some of the problems that we deal with, and this will be a factor on your test, some of the factors talk about, well, what would happen if the supply curve moved as well? Now, we didn't do a specific video on the whole supply side because it works pretty much the same, but in your book, you're going to find a section on what is going to make this supply curve move. One of those things could be, let's say, at the same time as people are looking for more milk because they think it's going to make them healthier, let's say at the same time, there's some sort of rare disease that infests all the cattle, and a big percentage of them are wiped out, so we can't get as much milk. Well, what is that going to do to our supply curve? Supply works almost exactly the same. Like when the price goes up, we just move along the curve. It changes the quantity supplied. You notice that this demand moved the price up, but we didn't move anywhere from our supply curve. But let's say that we had that kind of a disease that impeded us from supply. So we're going to have a change in the supply. So the supply is actually going to be reduced. So we're going to move, say, to this S1 right here. So our supply curve has moved in this direction. So now you've got a word problem that goes in two stages. We started at this equilibrium here. We want to know what's going to happen to the equilibrium price and quantity if we get that change in consumer preferences that makes people want more milk, but then also at the same time we have a disease that prevents us from getting more milk. So the supply changes. So we've had a change in the demand, but we've also had a change in the supply. So now our new equilibrium has to be the intersection of this D1 and S1, which occurs right here, right? Now we've got a new price, equilibrium 2, up here, and then we've got roughly another QE2 right here. Now I'm going to say something about this. Now, in this case, we have moved both the demand curve and the supply curve. It's very clear that this price has gone up, right? Relative to this original equilibrium, this price has gone way up, and that makes sense, right? More people want something and there's less of it. Just our instinct will tell us that that causes prices to rise. But look at what happens down here with the quantity. In the first case where we just moved the one curve, it was fine because we could see that the price went up, the quantity went up, and that made sense. There was plenty of supply to, to meet the new demand. So all we did was we moved along our supply curve and we had a larger quantity supplied to meet the new demand. But because our supply curve also shifted, look at what happened here. The price definitely went up, but the quantity, I drew this up here, but I could have drawn it just a little bit more over it. It would have been exactly the same. So this is something that happens very frequently when you have a shift in the demand curve and a shift in the supply curve, is that one of the things is going to be clear, right? So we could say as a result of these two shifts, price went up for sure. But when it comes down to quantity, your tip off on this is that it's kind of ambiguous there. So we're going to say that in fact the quantity is ambiguous. The change in quantity is going up, and the change in quantity is ambiguous. And you're going to see that in many of the problems that you do when a demand and supply curve shift. And just understand that that is a valid point to make. So if you can see that it's very close together, then it is a valid answer to write. Price will go up, but the quantity change is ambiguous.